So I didn't actually want to sit through this film. I'm glad I did, because it is worth speaking about. But I really wasn't expecting to. It kind of like was looking for one movie, and this movie came up instead. So I'm kind of I don't really have the best things in the world to say about it. And it's kind of upsetting because I was a big fan of the first two, and the fact that they made a third one so many years later. So, truthfully, let's just get this out of the way. The first film, the first Bad Boys film from the mid 90s, is tremendous. It's such a good film for that time and that era. And I thought it was great. I think it's one of those classic kind of action movies of the 90s. And it's definitely one of those films that kind of really was like a standing ovation kind of role for Will Smith. It was around that time where he was hot and he was doing movie after movie after movie. And this is just another one. And it wasn't like he was doing bad films. Like, he never picked up a bad film at that point. That's also perspective, who likes what films and whatnot. But in my mind, the 90s was definitely a high time for an actor like Will Smith. So the first Bad Boys is good. Not going to say it's bad. It's good. Bad Boys 2, I don't know if we really needed Bad Boys 2. It doesn't come out for another 8 years or something, so it's not like an exact, like, right after a sequel. Most of the time it could also be just this day and age. Sequels, when they get greenlit, they come out within a year or two. It's not even a question. You see a movie that you like, it's getting a sequel in 2 to 3 years. This film was 8 years after the fact, something like that, 9 years after the fact. So with that huge gap in it, for it to still kind of pick up a lot of the popularity that it did, because it still was successful enough, so much that people, like, they talk more about those two films than I think anybody's actually cared about this third one that came out last year. So I don't remember the second one being as good as the first one, but I don't remember not enjoying it either, because it does have a lot of really good, memorable moments in it. It has some really good, there's that scene where Martin's character's daughter is going on the first date, and the two of them show up and start acting crazy to the dude when he opens the door. That typical, father scaring the first date kind of dude. It's a really funny scene, and it's definitely one of those scenes that, like, I enjoy when it comes to movies that are old like that. But now, that film comes out 2002, 2003, something like that. It's 2020. 18 years later. And, like, you want to make another Bad Boys film, dude? And watching this film had me thinking, you know what? I think Bad Boys was what Fast and Furious kind of modeled off of. Because these movies are not that much different. It's just, instead of it being like how monotonous the Fast and Furious series, which I'm not going to really get into that right now, but how much it's all about, the criminals in those films, technically speaking. In this one, it's about the police, and it makes the police the good guys. And I can understand why that could be something that's intriguing, to actually have a story where it's that same perspective, but it's Will Smith and Martin Lawrence again, which I don't think Martin Lawrence has done a movie in like 10 years. And I don't even think he wanted to do this one. If I remember correctly, I think it was Will Smith who actually, like, I don't want to say begged him, but really, like, asked him, hey, could you, like, we have to do this. Can we do this? And it really is just to set up another one that is in the works. They have a Bad Boys 4 coming out, which, if you've seen this monstrosity from last year, you know that it's kind of leading into the idea of Will Smith's character's son. So that's the route they're going. And it's kind of the same route that, like, Expendables wanted to go to, where it was, by the third film, Stallone's character was like, listen, we're all too old, we should be retiring, and then let's bring in all this new blood. So he brings in all these action actors and actresses of this era and tries to build them up and give them the stage now. But Expendables 3 was a bit of a flop in comparison to the first two. Then again, whoever you ask, they'll consider all three of them a flop. But truthfully, I enjoy all of that action that is involved in those. That's what they're meant for. They're not meant to win, Emmys. They're not going to be up for a Tony Award. These are just really fun films to watch and enjoy. Now, I enjoy the Expendables film. I don't enjoy the Fast and Furious films. I enjoyed Bad Boys 1. I don't remember Bad Boys 2 that well. But if it was as good as Bad Boys 1, this just is not anywhere near what those two films were. So, it's upsetting to me to think that Will Smith, who got on board to produce this one as well, because he was just, the top-notch actor back then. But now he's like, he wanted this film to happen, so he got on the production team for it as well. And it did good. I think it got some praise, if not just it really smashed out the box office, because it's a Will Smith action movie from a character. It's almost like he was riding the wave of everybody's nostalgic to everything. There were so many things coming out in the last couple of years, and they continue to come out, that highlight people's feelings of nostalgia for things that we loved from years ago. And Bad Boys is probably something that he thought was a piece of media that he could work with and be like, okay, I think people are going to come and watch this because they want to watch another Bad Boys film. And I'm telling you, I didn't watch it on purpose. I watched it by accident because I was trying to watch something else, and then this popped up, and then my wife's like, I've been wanting to see this. I'm like, really? You wanted to see the third Bad Boys? This doesn't look good. And I don't say that to be mean to say Martin Lawrence or Will Smith. It just doesn't look like a good film. And I'm not going to say it's not enjoyable, but I'm going to say we really didn't need it. It wasn't necessary. It's just one of these films that is just I'm trying to balance between talking good about a Will Smith film, because I am a fan of Will Smith, but also talking bad about a film that just reeks of this over-the-top, unnecessary action that is just, it's too much. The action in this film should be left in the absurdity that comes out of films like Fast and Furious, or it should be left back in the early 2000s and mid-90s, where it kind of was a thing. If your movie didn't have cars exploding and all this stuff, then it wasn't a film back in the 90s. Let's call a spade. You watch an action film anywhere from 92 to 2005, cars are exploding, boats are exploding, grenades do way more damage than is actually realistically possible for a grenade, which I won't even get into that right now, but it's just, this was not really necessary to me. This wasn't a necessary film that Will Smith had to get behind and had to really try to make happen. And if he did it because he himself wanted something that he could put his name on, I don't think he really needs that. I'm pretty sure his name is on a lot of things besides being the producer of just this. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else he's produced, but he really didn't need it. Like I said, I don't think Martin Lawrence even wanted to do it, which is why a lot of his character is kind of in the background. It's not even that big of a deal. The other two films played it off where they're both characters. In Bad Boys 1, you felt that Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, they're equals. This film is about the two of them. In Bad Boys 2, felt the same way. You felt like this is about these two actors, these two characters that they're playing. And in this one, it's kind of just Martin Lawrence just is there. And in the film, the character actually retires. So I don't even think he's going to be involved in the fourth one. I think this was just a launching device for something else that Will Smith wanted to do, which is why his character's son is that I don't think it's a secret ending, but in the actual ending, there's a scene where he's like, you want to get out of jail, you got to do something. He's like, what do I got to do? Yeah, bam, here you go, Bad Boys 4. It's now Mike Lowrey and Mike Lowry's kid. Like, did you really need that, though? Did you really need that? I would have rather you put your name back on and you did the Independence film when that film came out. And I didn't even finish that. I fell asleep during the second Independence Day film because it's just not as good as the first one. And I get it. Again, that's another film that's part of this example of they're trying to feed off of everybody's nostalgia bone that everybody has. Everybody wants things that remind them of days where things were easier, things were simpler, things were more fun. Independence Day reminds you of that. Bad Boys reminds you of that. Oh, I went to go see Bad Boys in the theater, and the popcorn was nasty, but God, it just was so good. The theater was all grungy and what. Like, we don't get a lot of that anymore. We don't get a lot of those feelings that bring us back, and they're just trying to feed us more and more of that with all these different things. Every media is. So that's what I think this was, and it upsets me because it really does shit on what could have been the actual ending, which was the last movie that came out 15 years ago. And that's a huge gap between sequels. Like, let's not even talk about the idea of the almost 10-year gap between the first two. This third one has a 15-year gap, at least. Probably more. I'm probably doing the math wrong. I don't know the exact years of the second one or the first one to really tell you exactly, but I know the first two aren't separated as much as these two are. So it really did not need to happen. We did not need Bad Boys for Life. If you're feeling like you want to see something that is basically Fast and the Furious with Will Smith, and if you're a Fast and Furious fan, I'm not. But if you are, yeah, go watch it. You'll enjoy it. Got a bunch of explosions. It kind of feels like a Michael Bay film without being a Michael Bay film. And it's I don't know. It's not worth it to me. But, like I said, maybe you'll find some kind of enjoyment in it. I'm going to stick with the original two and be happy with those.